Hey, welcome everyone, it's John the Net Guy, and on today's show we're going to be repairing an HP ProBook. Now there's a funny story about this one. This laptop here has probably one of the ugliest screen cracks I've ever seen, and I actually used it as a prop for a recent commercial I did for the Red Key folks. Now interestingly enough, I have tons of these older, cheaper laptops, and I didn't want to break my screen on purpose, and I didn't want to, it's kind of like wrecking a car on purpose for a video. I can't even turn it on here. I'm gonna plug it in real quick so you guys can see it, but I actually went out and bought this thing from somebody on OfferUp. I paid $60 for it, which is a little bit higher than I probably should have, but the guy seemed nice and he's a new subscriber, so thank you. And it's a neat laptop. It has a ton of I/O, probably more I/O than I've seen on many laptops. But this screen crack, when you see it, is just nasty. It's got lights and flashies and the LCD is just toast. So I paid $60 for it. I'm actually going to be replacing it with one that I got on eBay. Now this is an older ProBook model. The model on this one is the ProBook 6440B. So 6440B. This applies to many other HP ProBooks though. This same procedure for replacing a laptop screen is pretty common. This one might be slightly different, and then I'm going to be repairing an HP Envy here very soon. So I'm going to get started. First things first, shut it all the way down if you can, and then remove the battery as well, because we don't want to have any sort of issues. So this one luckily has a removable battery. If you're in for something like the HP Envy that doesn't have a removable battery, you're going to actually have to take the bottom cover off and you're going to have to unpull the battery connector. Without any other changes, I'm actually going to go from right here. Now all of these little soft plugs cover a screw. Now I like to use this little screw kit that I have here on the left side, the screwdriver set. It has a it has a plastic cover which allows me a place to put all these. Now you may have to redo the adhesive on some of these. Once you take them off, they're not really designed to be reattached over and over. So I'm just using my fingernail to get underneath them. Occasionally you're going to need a spudger or some other tools. I actually keep all of my tools in these little pencil holders, so if you want to keep all your stuff organized, that is my mobile phone and specialty tools kit. It's got tweezers and spudgers and adhesives for putting monitors back together, magnets for parts. So lots of really useful things that you can use here, and some of these removal clips as well, which can be really useful. So you can get underneath monitors and lift up and whatnot. So I'm going to take the screwdriver out here, and I'm going to remove, I believe there's 8. I believe I'm going to have to get under some of these corners, yeah, as well. So there are 8 screws holding the bezel of the monitor on. So removing this one. Now, if this is your first time, you can invest in one of these magnetic screw organizers, which are kind of neat. So if your screws are magnetic, it'll hold them in place. Another trick I showed on a previous one, if you've never done this kind of work before, is to actually take a piece of cardboard, draw out the shape of the monitor or whatever part you're working on, and poke little holes inside of it and put these screws there. Then you're going to know which hole they go in and what size. These are all looking the same, so I'm taking a quick look at them as they come out. I have not actually worked on this HP model before, but I've done some research on it and it looks like it's pretty straightforward to fix. Got plenty of adhesive on those screw heads here. Okay. Got one left in the corner. Now at this point you can use guitar picks if you don't have guitar picks, or have never worked on a cell phone, because I collect these things. They throw them like pillow mints into the bins. You can use a credit card. If you have a little tool like this, you can get under the edge here and try to release. You can come in from the bottom sometimes. A lot of these are going to be hinged, and it looks like, yeah, you can start to work your way around, and as you're making some room here, you can use these guitar picks. put the camera down here so you can see this one a little bit better. So I'm just taking this guitar pick and I'm sliding it around the edge. And that's releasing those clips. Okay. And those are the clips that are releasing. That sound that you hear when they pop is these little tiny clips in there releasing tension. So I'm going to work my way across. Now sometimes the mechanism here for the display can fall out. Just keep an eye on the way and the direction that it goes in so you can put it back together. There we go. That's what I was looking for. There's a little bit of adhesive on the bottom, it looks like, or this person was really into sticky stuff, holding the bottom of the screen on. Okay. Going to continue. This is a flat pick that I'm using, so I'm gonna, doesn't have an edge. I'm just going to continue to work it down the sides. This is probably one of the hardest parts of all of the laptop screen replacements, is taking the screen out. Now, if it was a glass screen like the HP Envies are, I would tape it first or do whatever you can to avoid getting those glass shards on you. So it looks like it's got some adhesive on the bottom. Another trick that you can do here if you're worried is you can heat it up just slightly. You can use, I've got a little heater that I can use to heat up the components. Yeah, it looks like this is all adhesive. There we go. So this little heater that I've got to heat up the components, that works really, really well on adhesives because once they're a little bit warm, they'll tend to release a little easier. So the mechanism is staying on the screen, which is good. And the slight amount of adhesive that's on the replacement screen is all that's left. So that's the outside. And I've removed that. You guys can see this. Now, doesn't look like a webcam on this model, or if it is, it's not on my unit. So there's where the webcam would have been. I'm going to place that off to the side. Now, this piece here, it looks like it's integrated to these bottom hinges and it has side screws. So these top screws hold the top in, the bottom is held by that. It looks like there's a power connector and there's some very weak adhesive holding on here. So I'm going to remove these screws. Now these are slightly different, so I'm going to put them in a little different spot. And there's some alignment pins which are really common. Let's show you that here. So this is the area that I'm working. There's some real fine alignment pins that'll help you get that display centered. Now those are definitely part of the hinge. Now I can separate this. And it looks like it's held on by one connector. Now this is not a touch screen. A lot of touch screens will have two connectors holding it on. I'm going to hold this sideways so you can see it there. So I've released those two screws here that were on the back, and I just wanted to pull it away so that I can get to the back side of this screen so I can get to that piece. Now, I don't want to do too much here. A lot of these will have a real skinny amount of tape, like this tape right here that you see. I'm just going to use the tweezers and pull it back. It's going to work with me here. Okay. And then this connector also has tape on it. So it's always good if you can remove these tapes. And we're going to see if this is a locking connector, which it's not. So I pulled straight down to remove that connector. Hopefully you guys saw that. I pulled straight down on this to remove it. The opposite is going to be for installation. So I'm going to take these screws off of the side that you see here. I'm going to leave one in on each side. Now again, these are silver, so it's another size and another style. So I'm going to put those in a separate spot in a different pile just to help myself organize. I also have the benefit that I'm recording this entire process, so if I get really stuck, I can pause and go back to the recording. There's no harm, no shame at all in, especially if this is your first time opening up one of these style, to take pictures everywhere along the process. Smartphones, pictures are cheap. With your smartphone, take a bunch of pictures of the process, and then you'll remember where those screws go, or even take a video if you can. Okay, so I've released one side, and I'm going to release the other. Now this is kind of a unique orientation here on this one, because it's screwed onto the side of the hinges, so the hinge becomes an integral part of the screen supports. Most of the time they're not like that. So I'm going to remove this old broken screen. Oop. Okay, and you can see how bad this screen was shattered. Actually, hopefully you can. There's some lines. You know, all in all, looks complete. This is where I'm going to set this off to the side for a second, and then I'm going to show you guys the old screen compared to the new screen. Before you get too far in this process, when you have computer components that come from different various models. Now this one I purchased from eBay, but it's always good to just line it up. Now I didn't compare serial numbers, I just knew the basic resolution. The screen here, very, very clean, no breaks. Does have some of that adhesive. And in general, very clean overall. Same connector type, same location. So it looks like this is going to be a drop-in replacement, which is exactly what we want. Some of that adhesive was sticking to my desk pad. Okay, so we're going to put this out of the way for a second. I'm going to bring the frame back over here because we know that we need to attach it to that frame. And I'm looking to have the connector in the right orientation. And I'm going to grab one of these very small ones. And I'm going to insert one screw first to help hold on to this. And if you have a magnetic screwdriver, it definitely helps. Now, what do I do with this laptop when I'm done? We haven't talked about that. My thought was that I don't really have a use for this thing, but it is still a good computer and it's got a ton of different I/O. So if there was somebody that had one of these that really loved this model and maybe they wanted another one again, I've seen that kind of in some retro computing. If that was the case, I think I'm going to put it on eBay. And I'm going to find somebody that wants this same machine over again. And I'll give them the opportunity to buy it at a reasonable price. I'm not going to make a ton of money on it, if anything. And then that money is going to go to a charity. We'll figure out a good charity for that. Okay, now I'm doing all this work upright. I'm not removing the hinges. There are some demos that will tell you just to remove this whole hinge assembly, and you can do the work with it all isolated, but I'm not doing that. I'm just double checking. So this is about a 30-minute job, you know, and I'm recording it as I go and I'm explaining the steps. If you had to replace the back cover, that can take a little bit longer sometimes because you're taking out all of the Wi-Fi and all the other connectors that may be associated with that. Okay, now this is an interesting one. I'm going to get it real close here for you because this is how these connectors attach, and I want you to see that in detail. So this is a really, really small connector. This is real common to have these integrated connectors. So the way that they attach is they slide up and in. All of those pins go up and in, and this tape is going to retain them. There, that's in. Make sure you have lots of tension on that tape when you put it back down. And actually, I'm going to borrow that piece of tape that's going across on the old one. Now, this doesn't look like the official cap-on tape, the yellow tape that you normally see that's non-conductive. But do this for sure if you want to make sure that your display is connected and stays connected. So now I've done the connection part here. I want to just test that this new screen is working. So what I would recommend is putting the battery in at this point now and being very, very careful, obviously, with everything else that's in here. And then we're going to fire it up and see how it did. What's the over-under? How many people think this thing's going to turn on? First try, here we go. Well, it's not going to turn on because we don't have the battery power we used to. Okay, now that we're plugged into AC power, how many people think this is going to turn on? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And we've got our new HP display logo. So there we go. That is the steps that are involved in replacing the screen on the HP ProBook 6440B. Now I got this one on eBay and it looks like it's got Windows booting up. Let's see. It's probably been a long time since the person has seen the Windows logo on this screen, probably since it was broken on this computer. If there's any private information, I'm going to take that off. I'm going to turn it off here. Clip that out of the stream. I'm just putting these bottom connectors back in to help me get a little bit of time. Now it only has a 160 gig drive in it. I might bump that up a little bit here if I have time. Okay. Local admin, there we go. So this computer is now fixed. So what I'm going to do to finish off, I'm just going to turn the computer off because I'm going to replace the drive and do some other things to it. But I'm going to flatten it back down. And again, we're going to put this bezel. This is a good time if you have time to go ahead and clean the bezel really, really well. I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to make sure that it's down in all the places it should be. I believe there's overkill in screws already. Make sure that the Wi-Fi and these other wires have got plenty of room, that you're not going to pinch anything as you put it back together. And then usually just light pressure will help to push everything back in place where it needs to go. You can hear that popping sound. See those there. So pushing downward. There we go. Okay. I'm just looking for any seams or gaps that may not be all the way down. And now I'm just going to put back those 8 screws around the outside, and hopefully there's enough adhesive here. I'm going to work my way from inside out, kind of like you rotate around a car when you're replacing a car tire. Just want to have even tension, so I'm going to work my way up and make sure everything's clipped down all the way, especially those hinges. So yeah, this is about a 30-minute job overall if you take your time. As you've seen every single step here from start to finish. I just showed you how to do it. You don't need a lot of tools. A very small screwdriver helps a ton on this kind of job. Last 2 screws. There we go. Awesome, and I will replace these little plastic buttons everywhere. The super thin ones go in the corners. If you notice the difference, some of these are really thin and some are just a little bit thicker. The thicker style go on these, and the super skinny ones go in the corner. Now you can just feel that this is the thickness. Oh, I just dropped it. That's the thickness of the super skinny ones. They're almost just paper, and they're clean on one side and rubber on the other. So put that on. Now it's also a good time if it's had a crack or something like this, if you haven't had a chance, it's also a really good time to go back through and tighten those screen hinges if you can. But this job is complete. This is the HP ProBook 6440B. And this has been John, the Net Guy. I do PC build, tech tips, and gear reviews. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, you like to see this kind of stuff, if you need more computer help, or maybe you have a question, check us out and check the links to the Discord in the description and my personal email where you can reach me. Thanks a lot for watching. And this one is going to go on eBay. So I'll put a link in the description here and you can see how much money we got for it for charity. I'm donating this computer and everything related to it. Thanks for watching.